Call this meeting to order. This is the regular meeting of the City Council of the City of Cottonwood, Arizona, to be held November 6, 2018 at 6 p.m. If we could please have the Deputy Clerk take the roll.
Councilmember Althouse.
Here.
Councilmember Norman.
Here.
Councilmember Pfeiffer.
Here.
Councilmember Hagerty.
Here.
Councilmember Henry.
Here.
Vice Mayor Allen.
Here.
And Mayor Linsky.
Here, thank you. Please stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Up next is a brief summary of current events by the mayor, city council, and/or city manager. The public body does not propose, discuss, deliberate, or take legal action on any matter brought up during the summary unless the specific matter is properly noticed for legal action. Do we have any council members here tonight to report, please?
I do. I attended the local Marine Toys for Tots run on Saturday, the 3rd. Not a great turnout, not well advertised, but they did get a lot of toys, and we raised a good amount of money. I don't know what the final amount was, but it was for children here. And then this coming Saturday, November 10th, is the Verde Valley Toy Run. Starts at Walmart, 10 a.m., with kickstands up at 10:30. Don't have to ride a motorcycle to go. You can come by in a 3 wheels or 4 wheels. Bring us a toy. All the toys will stay local here in Verde Valley. So,
Great. Sweet. Anybody else? Please.
I attended the Northern Arizona Council of Governments regional meeting this last week. Came down in the middle of vacation, just want you to know. I was up on the mountain. Great meeting, a lot of information, and I will share that meeting. I will forward the information to all the council members. I recorded it, so I'll get it to you via email.
Great. Okay. Any other council members? No. Just briefly, we had our home tour, historic home and building tour this last Saturday, and we had good, respectable turnout, as most years. We had about 115 people registered, mostly locals, but a lot, too, up from Phoenix and Prescott and down from Flagstaff as well, as some from, I think, North Dakota.
And Payson.
And Payson and Snowflake, okay.
You
Councilmember Pfeiffer's home was on the home tour this year as one of the artillery box homes. It was very interesting.
Fragmentation bombs.
Yeah. Nothing live in there anymore, I think. It's been confirmed.
Just me.
Yeah, just you.
I can go off at any time.
But I do want to thank all the employees and the folks that put their homes on the tour this year. It was really a very successful event, so thanks to all the people that volunteered. And does the city manager have anything to report?
Yes. Mayor, Council, just to let you know, we had our annual Frisbee Golf Tournament last weekend. We had 88 participants, and the event netted a $1,000 donation for the Military Service Park. And then just a reminder to everybody that Walking on Main is this Saturday, so come out for those festivities. Wine, arts, car show, lots of good music. And then the favorite time of year for our finance department, our auditors are in and starting their work, and I know Rudy and his staff are excited about that. And that's it, Mr. Mayor.
All right, very good, thank you. Okay, up next we have presentations. We have 2 presentations tonight. The first is from Sherry Horbach, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
That's close enough.
Close enough?
Yeah.
We'll let you come up and correct me, please.
Oh, no. I can always tell when telemarketers call, because it's Horbaz, but I get Horbacks or Horback, or
Got
just
it.
Hor, because they're not sure what to do with it. So don't worry.
I didn't want to say that,
Yes,
but yeah.
okay, I know. My name is Sherry Horbaz. I am from Tucson, and I am from Southwest Fair Housing Council. We are a grant-funded, nonprofit organization that works to eliminate housing discrimination amongst the state of Arizona. I did bring you some goodies. In my haste, I brought the Spanish brochure, so if you speak Spanish or you want to learn my Spanish is donde es su dinero, es mío. So where's your money is mine. That's as much as I know. So I did bring you some things. I also brought you a presentation packet where these are the things that I use in my class. I have a small team.
Step to the microphone, please.
Can you?
Thank you.
Okay. I have a small team, and we travel around Arizona teaching about fair housing. We also have in our organization an enforcement department. And what that means is we hire and train testers, and we send them out to all Arizona communities in the housing arena looking for forms of discrimination. Sometimes it's overt and it's very blatant. For example, we've sent someone out, we had a race complaint, so we sent out a Hispanic tester and they asked what the rates are, and of course it's $900 for a 1-bedroom, $1,100 for a 2-bedroom. That person comes back, we send a white tester and the bedroom is $550 for a 1-bedroom and $650 for a 2-bedroom. So you can see that's egregious. But really the main thing that I see quite a bit as a practitioner in the field is that we're having discrimination happening unintentional. And even though it's unintentional, it is still unlawful. So our goal, I'm working with Catholic Charities, and I'm open to working with any organization, and it's harder to get into the smaller areas, but that's where I'm trying to make sure we get into, because it seems like our smaller areas don't get what the bigger cities get. And so I'm willing to work with any organization to host a free class. Again, I don't charge for the classes, they're free since we charge our grants. And then just to let you know, enforcement is out there trying to combat forms of discrimination. Another thing that I find, I'm not sure if you guys have heard so much, is we are working towards getting our criminal reentry folks housed across Arizona, and that's become difficult. HUD has put out a memo in 2016 that said you can no longer say, we don't rent to felons, period. And there's a lot of people I'm finding that aren't even aware of that particular memo from 2 years ago. And so again, we are testing for that, but we are finding struggles in all communities in Arizona of getting our reentry folks housed. So we have a special project we're working on, and again, if anyone has resources or needs resources, we're trying to put things together so that we can get them housed once they're out and back in our society. That's about the biggest news. So do you guys have any questions for me that I can share with you? Do you want to know any? I know you got a big full agenda, but I just wanted to share a little bit about who we are. We service the state, and we're free. Can't beat free. Although it's amazing, but you can't beat free. And I really appreciate you allowing me to take the time to come here and tell you about who we are and what we do.
I do have a
Please.
question. You said earlier that you do free presentations. Do you have any upcoming in the Verde Valley area, or is
I
that
don't. I just did a presentation. I am also a real estate instructor for fair housing. So my grab right now for this community is only to say I go to the Cottonwood Library, do a free fair housing class so that the realtors can get their 3-hour credits.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the only draw I have pull right now. But yeah, no, I don't have anything scheduled, and willing to do so.
Okay, great. And your contact information, all of that
It's
is
in the
packet?
bag.
Wonderful. Thank
Yeah, and I don't know, should I leave them here and then you can pass them out?
Please.
You don't have to fight over the toilet. Thank you so
Are-
much.
I just
Thank
have a couple quick questions for you, sorry. Are you the nearest representative from Southwest Fair Housing?
Yes.
Okay, who are your contacts up here in the Verde
I
Valley?
don't have any.
Okay.
That's why I'm pursuing more. Again, it's
Okay.
Catholic Charities that work out of Prescott and Cottonwood, but I really don't
Okay.
have any quite yet.
Okay, but maybe we could help get you some closer contacts up here so you could come up and give some presentation?
Well, and then, yes, and then sometimes too, just having people know what their rights are.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the biggest thing is we see disability as a #1 category highly violated across the states. And people don't realize that if I have an emotional support animal, I have a therapy animal, and this is all in that packet I gave you. If I have an animal that, whatever I call it, is for my disability, then they can't charge fees. They can't have extra rules, but a lot of people aren't aware of that, and then they have to either go homeless because they're not going to give up their animal, or they give up their animal and they didn't need to, and it caused a lot of havoc for someone who needed that animal. So,
Okay. Well, we're certainly a community that could use services like what you offer, so I hope we can work to get you some closer contacts up here.
good, thank you so much. Thanks
Mayor, I
again.
think we might actually even have somebody in the audience who could potentially be a contact for you, who's on our homeless coalition, and maybe she has a card she'll pass you
Okay.
out there, but I think we definitely have some contacts that.
Thank you. Any
We'll
more
be in
questions?
contact. No, that's all.
All
Thank
right.
you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have representatives from Young Life who will share their activities in the Verde Valley. Evening.
My name is Demi Corkery, and I have Dan McCausland with me. I'm on staff with Young Life, and I brought some brochures. So Young Life is a worldwide organization. We're a nonprofit, and it's a youth outreach for teenagers. And what separates Young Life from other youth organizations is that it doesn't start with a program. It starts with concerned adults in our communities that really care for teenagers and really want to build authentic relationships with them and care enough about them that they're willing to go into their world and onto their turf and build those friendships with them, which is really cool and it's really necessary. And so here in Cottonwood and Sedona, we have a middle school and high school ministry, and in Cottonwood, we have a middle school and high school ministry. Young Life there's several different ministries. There's some for middle school, some for high school. There's some for kids with special needs and disabilities. There's one for teen moms and for Young Life college students. And here in Cottonwood, we have middle school and high school and their integrated clubs, so we welcome our friends with disabilities. We don't have a specific club for them. And we have kids coming from 3 different middle schools right now. We have Mountain View Prep, DDB, and Cottonwood Community School. And then our Young Life has students mostly from Mingus High School and a couple from American Heritage Academy. And really, Young Life in this community has had a rich history. We started in the 70s. Dan McCausland was actually a part of that. He was playing music for them. And just, it's fluctuated over the years due to resources. And Cody Bell moved here a few years ago and got it going again. And so now we're continuing to develop that in Cottonwood. And so just a little bit about the ministry and like what we do. The main root of it, our heart, is what we call contact work. And that's going out to where kids are and building relationships with them. And so that's going to their sports games. I go to the volleyball games at Cottonwood Community School all the time. I'm on campus passing out donuts, meeting kids, trying to learn names and meet them and build friendships with them. And so that's the main heart of it. And then we meet once a week, so the Young Life will meet on Mondays. And we'll usually meet in someone's garage. And then Wildlife, which is middle school, we meet on Fridays. And it's really fun. We play a bunch of games. It's high energy. There's music. And then there's friendships. Kids get to invite their friends from school and build friends with kids, maybe that they never would at school, and get to meet them and build friendships with the leaders. And then we talk about full life. And so we're a Christian organization. And so we believe that full life comes from Jesus. And so we talk a little bit about that. And really, our ministry is all volunteer-based. So there's only 2 staff people in the Verde Valley. It's me and John Booth. And then the rest, we have about 25 volunteer leaders. And so it's college students, it's adults, full-time jobs, it's parents that volunteer 10 to 15 hours out of their week to build relationships with kids. And then we invest in adults in the community too. We have a Young Life committee, and they support the area financially and morally, and they are parents in the community, they are Young Life alumni, they are other civic leaders in the community that really want to support our volunteer leaders, want to support the ministry, and want to advocate for the ministry in the community and be friends for that. And Dan McCausland is our committee chair, and so he's in charge of all the different adults in the community that want to support Young Life. So yeah, it's a really great organization. We believe we're investing in like the next generation and really building leaders. One of the leaders comes to mind. Her name is Jasmine, and she lives in Clarkdale. And she got invited to go to Young Life in high school and became friends with one of the leaders and really grew in her faith and leadership. and really connected with the leaders. And now she's graduated high school and she's leading wildlife with me. So she's investing into middle school students here in Cottonwood, just like someone invested in her life. And so, yeah, this really is transformative, and I've seen it before, and I'm just convinced as like over the past 7 years of being a leader that teenagers need adults in their life who really care about them and are willing to really listen to them, listen to their stories, encourage them and challenge them. And so that's what Young Life is doing. You guys have any questions?
Very good. Any questions?
I just a suggestion. We have a Cottonwood Youth Center that's beginning to open back up, or has it opened? I don't think it's opened yet. The contact there is Kathy Wambach, and if you have a card you can give me, I can give you that information. It's not a faith-based organization, but it's still very heavy into taking care of our youth and getting them involved with adults and other teenagers. And I think that would be a great thing for you to hook up with them.
Okay, great. I don't have a card with me. Tosca does have my information. So.
Great.
So can I talk a little bit about committee?
Please do.
Yeah. So
If you would, sir, just approach the mic, please. Thank you.
I'm Dan. I'm a Mingus grad, 76. My wife's grandmother graduated, great-grandmother graduated Mingus in the 1890s. My wife went to Flag High, so we're rooted in the community. The day I met my wife, I met my Young Life leader. And I know the families that were involved 40 years ago, partnering to make Young Life work. I know the families in the community now that are helping, and what I know is 40 years from now, there'll be folks thanking the committee in the community for participating in the lives and our involvement in kids. Right now, last year we had, how many kids go to camp? 106? Just under 180 kids last year from the valley go to camp.
Good.
So we have a big camping program. And the blatant pitch, anybody who wants to help us participate, we're looking for more committee members here in Cottonwood.
How would they contact you then if they are interested in volunteering?
Demi just gave you some flyers.
Okay.
And there's some contact information.
Okay.
And there should be on the flyers, right?
Here's a phone number.
Yep, and I have business cards out.
Oh, great.
I know this guy, so.
I guess my point is, now that you're on live television here, sir, maybe you could just give a number or a website or something.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
602-319-1217.
Fantastic.
We'd love to find your participation, and we're excited.
Great. Well, thanks to you both for coming in this evening.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, up next is call to the public, and this portion of the agenda is set aside for the public to address the council regarding an item that is not listed on the agenda for discussion. However, the council cannot engage in discussion regarding any item that is not officially listed on the agenda for discussion and/or action. So are there any folks here tonight that would like to address the council? No? Okay. I'll go ahead and move on then to approval of the minutes of the work session of October 9, 2018, regular meeting of October 16, 2018, and the special meeting of October 19, 2018.
Make a motion.
Please.
Move to approve the minutes of the work session of October 9th, 2018, regular meeting of October 16th, 2018, and special meeting of October 19th, 2018.
Second.
Okay, Vice Mayor made the motion, Councilmember Norman seconded it. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. Then we roll into unfinished business, and we have ordinance number 652, amending Title 15, Buildings and Construction of the Municipal Code by deleting Chapter 15.28.010, Uniform Code for Abatement of Dangerous Buildings in its entirety, and adding a new section, 15.28.010, International Property Maintenance Code, second and final reading. Evening, Mr. Jackson.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. I'm here to attempt to answer any questions you might have concerning the adoption of this.
You want to just give a real quick Cliff Notes version of what we're looking at tonight for folks that weren't here?
When we adopted our latest codes, the 2012, somehow through the process, the property maintenance code fell to the side. And we would really like to have that back in order to help us to ensure proper building safety, conditions of building, conditions of property, that type of thing, give us a code that we can follow to try to get those problems rectified.
Great. And again, all the other municipalities, as they adopted the 2012, also adopted this section, and
yes, sir.
So we're all on board with the rest of Verde Valley communities in adopting this. Yep. We went over this at some length at the last time we discussed it, so I don't see any reason not to approve the ordinance. So I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 652.
Second.
Okay, Mayor made the motion, Councilmember Henry seconded it. If we could do a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Althouse.
Yes.
Councilmember Henry.
Yes.
Councilmember Haurgy.
Yes.
Councilmember Norman.
Yes.
Councilmember Pfeiffer.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Allen.
Yes.
And Mayor Linsky.
Yes, thank you. Please read ordinance number 652 by title only. Thank you.
Ordinance number 652, an ordinance of the mayor and city council of the city of Cottonwood, Yavapai County, Arizona, amending Title 15 Buildings and Construction of the Municipal Code by deleting Chapter 15.28.010 Uniform Code for abatement of dangerous buildings in its entirety, and adding a new section 15.28.010 International Property Maintenance Code. Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thanks. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda, and these following items are considered to be routine and non-controversial by the council and will be approved by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or citizen so requests, in which case the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence. So we have 5 items, and I'll read them out for you now, and if there's anyone out there in the audience that would like to have an item pulled for discussion, just raise your hand, please. Item 1 is extension of premises liquor license permit application submitted by Melanie E. Bermudez, licensee for Pillsbury Wine Company North, LLC, located at 1012 North Main Street. Item 2 is request to close Main Street between Pima Street and Cactus Street from 4 a.m. to 9 p.m. on November 10, 2018 for the Walking on Main event. Number 3 is authorizing the city manager to sign a letter of intent to meet conditions and requests for obligation of funds for a rural business development grant in the amount of $64,500 to be used toward the purchase of an audiovisual system for the Cottonwood Community Clubhouse. Item 4 is approval of cooperative purchase agreement with Commercial Computer Services, Inc. for audiovisual equipment and related services for the Cottonwood Community Clubhouse. And item 5 is resolution number 2970, approving an intergovernmental agreement with the Yavapai County Free Library District for courier delivery services for the Cottonwood Public Library. Any items a council member or member of the public would like to have pulled? Okay, I'd move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, Mayor made the motion, Councilmember Norman seconded it. If you could please, all in favor? Do we do a roll call on that? No, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Consent agenda is approved, and please, Deputy Clerk, read resolution number 2970 by title only.
Resolution number 2970, a resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Cottonwood, Yavapai County, Arizona, approving an intergovernmental agreement with the Yavapai County Free Library District for courier delivery services for the Cottonwood Public Library. Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on now to new business. First up is update from the Old Town Association, progress of the organization, and upcoming OTA events. Evening.
Hello. Okay. Thank you. Hello, council members. Thank you for allowing us to, my name is Brenda Clouston. I'm the owner of Colt Grill and the president of the Old Town Association. I'd like to thank you for allowing us to submit a progress report on the Old Town Association. It's a terrific progress report, and I'm happy to let you know that. The 5 board members have been working long, hard hours since last May, rebooting the Old Town Association, after unfortunately a dishonest board member shredded most of the contacts, database, and documents, neglected to file important documents, took the funds in the bank account, and fled. We, the new board, were willing to dedicate our time to ensure the Old Town Association and the work that had been done in prior years did not cease, and the wonderful strides that had been made in the ambiance and activities and charm that is Old Town would continue on. This has not been an easy task. We've had to meet weekly since last summer for over 2 hours at a time per meeting to get the work done. We are very pleased to report, however, that we are now on top and in control of what was an inherited mess. We now have a fiduciary agent, Christian from Cottonwood Chamber, whom we are grateful for, a hardworking treasurer who submits weekly reports and monthly reports to us, a hired professional accounting firm that will review our accounts quarterly, a copy of which will be submitted to the city for your review, a transparent bank account with important safeguards in place, solid insurance policies, and we are active and in good standing with the Arizona Corporate Commission. And I do have a document proving that. We have drafted our policies and procedures that hold us accountable to our fiduciary agent, you, the city, and to one another. We are going above and beyond to be a responsible entity and to make the area proud. We hope that you will keep these points in mind when deciding whether or not to further fund the OTA so that we can continue our exceptional progress into the future with more marketing, activities, and inclusive hospitality growth. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Mayor, Council, thank you for having us. We set out a few months back to tackle this, and I can honestly say I'm very proud of this group of people. They have really stepped up, showed their professionalism, and really taken it to the next level. I really haven't had to do a whole lot of anything. They've been very transparent and bringing everything to me and incorporating and including me in everything, which has been great. The physical mailing address has been changed. It is now the Chamber's address. Also, our phone number is, you have a direct line to have access to OTA questions or anything. There's constant communication between all of us. As Brenda mentioned, you know, the general liability and directors and officers insurance has been in place. Happy to hear that I'm actually listed as one of the directors that is protected under that as well. Nonprofit status has been addressed. Accounting policies and procedures, and it's a pretty lengthy document, which we will make available to all of you as well. Been finalized and will be able to be presented to you. Accounting firm has been hired. 2017 taxes have been filed. There were some issues with the 2015 and 16 taxes, but we were able to, with Jim and Gavin, were able to pull enough data through the QuickBook files that we had access to, and actually are able to file the 15-16 taxes. We've hired that accounting firm to do that. Bylaws have been reviewed and will be edited to actually enter information about the fiduciary, as well as changing the 5-member board with a 1 ex officio member, which would be the chamber. I've been attending their meetings. They have been attending the chamber meetings and giving regular reports to our board as well. They've adopted a conflict of interest policy, which the entire board has signed, a whistleblower policy as well. That will be distributed to not just the board, but the membership. We want as many eyes out there saying if anything is going wrong, and we want them to be able to report on that. One area that might be a question for, and I don't know if it's possibly Steve, the city attorney, in that whistleblower policy, we've tried to set up every scenario where somebody could potentially, you know, what if, God forbid, the entire board and myself, they felt we're not operating correctly. What could potentially be the next step? Could it potentially be a report to the city? Or that's where we're kind of struggling with what a next step could potentially be for somebody.
I can speak with you about
that. That would be great. If we could have a meeting on that, we'd kind of like try and iron that out so it's thorough.
Happy to talk.
So as I stated also that the IRS taxes have all been up to date. The accountants will be doing quarterly oversight. We have at the chamber office set up an office within the chamber dedicated to the OTA. They have access to a computer that has strictly OTA information on. We're all able to access that computer. That's where the main database or QuickBooks financial file is stored. So when the treasurer comes in, and he was actually there this morning reconciling the bank statements, I'm there with them for oversight. And again, we will have the accountant overview all of that quarterly, and that will help with our quarterly reports to present to you all as well. Again, meetings we're doing regularly. An area that has kind of slacked, and this is where kind of comes, it's pretty important for us to potentially get that funding from the city as far as marketing and promoting. As you all know, they pulled off a Safe Night event down here that was very successful with limited funds, and we're able to pull it off and make a little bit of a profit to help out. Some of the other areas that we're looking at in the next big event would be the Chocolate Walk. And I can't believe the detailed reports that we get from Jim. Jim Ariola is the owner of Red Rooster, and he's the treasurer, and he's giving us weekly cash flow statements. So we are reviewing everything that's coming in, everything that's due, and the board votes on it as a whole. Checks are written that night and paid. They've really stepped up and have taken this serious. They could definitely use some help in 2019 to continue this going. And I, for one, would love to get some help from the city, and we're hoping that you guys will consider funding them as a line item, budget item. Some of the other expenses that have come up with marketing, the chamber has been stepping up and helping out with. We had a contract with Sedona Now TV, which is the local channel that shows you what to do. We created an Old Town commercial that's playing here at the tavern, along with a lot of the resorts and everything in Hawaii. Wouldn't that be great? Sedona, Chamber picked up that cost. They have a contract now through August of 2019. So that commercial is now running in the hotels and everything. You know, as we've we've formed a CMC, which is the Cottonwood Marketing Coalition that we've done with CEDC, Parks and Rec, and Old Town was always a partner in that. Chamber has stepped up, and through August of 2019, we're covering a lot of that cost on continuing to market Old Town as a whole. It is a destination, and we feel that it's important, and it's a huge part of our budget. So we could use some help, and we're hoping you guys will consider that. I think that they've really taken it seriously, and got some excellent leaders in place right now. And the nice thing that I'm seeing is that they're thinking about down the road when they're not here, and they're setting those policies and procedures in place to make sure that this can continue forward.
Right. Very good.
If you want to talk about, yes. About the yeah. So one of the areas that we're kind of struggling with, and is that we have the Chocolate Walk coming up. We're hoping to do staging like they have in the past at the community clubhouse. Unfortunately, there's a fairly large expense involved in that, and it's just not in the budget. We were hoping that we could potentially work with Parks and Rec to see if there was a way to either get a variance on that or look at some potential discounted rate to help out. It's a pretty significant event. As you know, we have the parade is that day, and they have a VIP event the night before, and then they start at around 3 p.m. the day of, December 1st is that. And
we have to set up it too.
Right.
We need to use the building to have the tickets set up and registration for Chocolate Walk. It's a great spot to promote Old Town and Cottonwood for the Chocolate Walk. So we'd like to have some sort of, we'd like to use the building for Chocolate Walk, to be honest, so that we can showcase Cottonwood in Old Town the best way possible. The building turned out so nice, and
good exposure
you just need it for a couple hours to allow people to come in, check in, get their tickets, and then leave.
Right.
So we're trying to dedicate people to be able to do that, and it would look really nice for the town if we were able to have that guests pick up tickets in that beautiful building.
Sure.
Question. First, wonderful job. I mean, the difference is night and day as far as the professionalism and the details that you all are taking care of when it comes to the Old Town Association. Very impressed. It's night and day. Good job. What is the cost that you were unable to, what is the?
I want to say there's at least a $400 deposit, and it's roughly 50.
It's several $100.
Yeah.
I don't have the form. The secretary, Debbie Garrison, has the form, but she just asked that we might be able to ask for that amount. We just hardly have any money right now. We're waiting for the Chocolate Walk proceeds to come in and just to keep things going. So And the reason that we feel that it would be a nice gesture is that it showcases Cottonwood so nicely. We're not, a separate entity of Cottonwood, we're the Old Town Association. So.
And this takes place December, remind me of the date?
First Saturday.
It's the same
First.
day as the parade, so it's the first.
December, oh, is this the first? Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Mayor, I think somebody from Parks and Recs Hezekiah wanted to come up and speak. He got up and sat down, got up, sat down.
I didn't want to interrupt, but I was called upon. Mayor Council Hezekiah with the Cottonwood Parks Recreation Department. I think what we were thinking was the deposit is around $800. And again, the last time we met with the HPC, the consideration was if it's a nonprofit, free to the entire public event, then we could possibly look at waiving the fee structure. I do believe there is profit that's made from this program that supports OTA, so that should be taken into consideration.
I just want to be careful about that because we don't want to start waiving too many fees because that's the purpose. But I am sure there are people that are going to step up and help you in that aspect too. Okay.
Do you have any other questions as far as the framework of OTA at this time? Or, I would like to mention my board because they work so hard.
Please.
We have two vice presidents, Mitch Levy with Burning Tree Cellars and Gavin Galifant with Winery 101. They were both vice presidents, which is okay with our bylaws. I have a terrific secretary, Debbie Garrison, who's working very hard. She keeps us on parliamentary procedure and all of our T's dotted and our T's crossed. And then, of course, the terrific treasurer that we have, Jim Ariola, with Red Rooster. You, and Christian. So.
I certainly couldn't be more pleased to see both of you here today. I think you've formed a stronger partnership, and I think you're on the right track.
We're very excited about the future. We've discussed, possibilities of how to improve the current events and the potential of introducing new ones as well.
Right.
So, very exciting.
The partnership with the chamber gives us so much more opportunity. It's given us a lot more, just having Christian there to just give us advice, and just all the entities that he has contact with and the marketing. It just gives us so much opportunity for the future. And so it's with the future in mind that we want to keep going,
Sure.
So we see a lot of growth in the future, and we're excited about it.
Great.
I just had a comment first to second the thank you for both of you for being here for the information, but I also thought when we had the discussion, I thought the consensus of council was we don't want to have a built-in fee waiver provision for nonprofits, but and I thought it was we would leave it in Parks and Rec's discretion as to whether or not a certain entity would receive a fee waiver. And here my only concern is this is an organization that the city has set aside funds for exactly this type of an event, the Chocolate Walk. It is a big draw. I mean, obviously my office participates every year, and I forget how many tickets are sold every year. We make 300 chocolates. I think it's 300, but
400.
it is up to 400 now? Oh,
Yeah.
great. That's in however more hours of making chocolates, but it's a great event. But we get, with every bag and map that's sold, we get a group of 6, 7, 8 people that are traveling with that bag, and they're spending money in all of the businesses up and down the street. So personally, I would prefer, if we're going to make exceptions for a nonprofit that's not making funds, I would also think we could extend an exception to a nonprofit that the city is giving funds, and perhaps work something out like that.
And the funds do go directly toward marketing of the destination, which is Old Town. So I would agree. And I don't know how far into the weeds we can really get into this tonight. I'm looking
We're a little
carefully.
off topic.
Yeah.
This was just supposed to be a presentation, discussion of upcoming events, so we are getting a bit off topic. But perhaps there's another way. We saw some time where there's another way we can approach that issue.
And hopefully this isn't too far off topic, but certainly if it's the council's pleasure, staff can work with them to work out an equitable, cost for the facility.
Okay.
Maybe if they throw in some chocolate, we can really cut a deal. So,
Please.
This is also under new business, and it says the following items are for council discussion, consideration, possible legal action, so we wouldn't have to worry about the weeds.
It says upcoming OTA events. That's a very good point, Councilmember Pfeiffer.
I'm not the attorney, so I'm just going to look to Steve.
No pressure.
Oh, am I giving an on-the-fly legal opinion? I see that the operative word is getting an update, and it's council's prerogative, but I think we're a little.
Okay. I would then take Doug's advice and work with city staff, and I'm sure that you can come to a resolution.
Yeah, I think on that one, and then probably it would be better legally to come back and get the council's approval to proceed with the annual commitment that we make to the OTA.
Right.
I mean, since we are doing our quarterly reports, and I would assume sometime at the end of December would be a good time for us to present that report to you all. You know, that's got an accountant stamp of approval.
Yes.
Potentially address it then.
Yes. That'd be great.
Great.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Because obviously our next meeting is a ways off, and so in terms of the chocolate walk, we probably need to get something settled relatively quickly on that.
Right.
So.
We
Okay.
can get together and talk about that and figure it out.
Okay. Very good.
Any other?
I don't believe so. Thanks to you both for being here.
Thank you.
And thanks for your hard work. Okay, up next is notice of intent to adopt a use tax in the city.
Good evening, Mayor Council. I'm Rudy Rodriguez. I'm the Deputy City Manager for the City of Cottonwood. Before you is the copy of the NOI, Notice of Intent, to establish a use tax for the City of Cottonwood. And what it basically does, it takes out the current option 15 and inserts the new option 15, which allows sections 6, Article 6, Section 600 through 660, which actually establishes the use tax for the City of Cottonwood. It also includes some exceptions to the use tax. Local option AA, which exempts the liability for cost of employee meals. It also exempts the local option HH, which is a tax liability for charitable donations to an organization that are 501c3s. And then lastly, it also has an exception for option JJ, which exempts the use tax for stuff that is stored by the City of Cottonwood. It just wouldn't make sense for us to pay the tax and then have to wait 3 months to get it back. So there is a NOI attached that we have had before. The whole idea of this is we're trying to kind of level the playing field between local and those local businesses and businesses that are outside that actually collect less taxes than we do. We have had some calls in the past about the use tax. It's a little bit misunderstood by some people. They believe it's an additional tax for everybody, and it isn't. It only affects those that normally the big ticket items that are acquired outside the corporate limits. Basically, traditionally they're light vehicles such as vehicles, heavy equipment, boats, RVs that are titled outside, that are purchased outside and come into the corporate limits. Now, if they go ahead and pay an additional tax, then we don't collect anything. If they underpay wherever they actually bought the item, the additional tax will be collected by motor vehicle when it's titled inside the corporate limits. Any questions?
Questions for Mr. Rodriguez?
There was a question last time about, I think you dealt with restaurant equipment that nobody sells around here. So you're you put in a situation where you have to go out of town to buy this equipment.
Mm-hmm.
So this tax is going to apply to that?
Yes, it would. It would be, here's the take on this. If you go out, if you go out and you purchase equipment, large equipment, restaurant equipment, equipment for a business of any sort. Yes, if you don't pay any tax wherever you're at, yes, and you would be collecting the 3.5%. If they do pay more than 3.5%, then they would not have to pay anything. Anyone who's buying any type of equipment outside and pays less than sales tax has to already come in and pay the state sales tax. So most of the accountants that have in the area already understand the use tax portion, because if they don't collect it at the point of when they acquire it, they have to pay for it now to the state of Arizona, which is 5.6%.
To the state, but not the city, and then.
Because we don't have it, right?
Right, and this only affects people and businesses within the city limits, nothing outside of the city limits.
Correct. Unfortunately, we don't have jurisdiction there.
Right, so, you know, Ruben, were you done? Okay, I'm sorry, because I kind of, you know, I was okay with this, honestly, before we raised sales tax, and then when we raised sales tax, now I'm having issues with this, because I don't blame people for, you know, going out to Highway 260 and buying a car, or the people who live in the village, you know, don't have to pay this use tax, or the people that live across the street from me in Clarkdale don't have to, you know, pay this use tax. So, you know, before sales tax got increased, I thought, you know, it makes it fairer for our businesses inside, but, you know, now that, you know, we've raised sales tax, big ticket items, I don't blame people. I mean, everybody wants to save as much money as they can and have as much money in their pockets, you know, instead of giving it to the city. So.
Certainly, I understand. My take on it is that's taxes that aren't collected by the citizens of Cottonwood for something that's purchased outside. However, someone has to make it up, and we make it up internally. I'll give you a good example of what recently happened, well, not recently, happened a few years ago. We had an individual who bought a very expensive RV in Oregon or Idaho, one of those non-sales tax communities, came to title it in Sedona. Sedona does have a use tax. When they found out that the city of Cottonwood does not, they actually titled it in Cottonwood and parked it in Sedona. You know, some of these RVs are $250,000 or more in expense. Money we could have collected at that point in time. Money that we basically have to make up, us as residents, is the way I look at it. Not to mention is, of course, if we're lucky, fortunate to have an RV dealership, we'd like them to shop it here rather than going out and spending their money somewhere else, because it kind of becomes a double whammy. We don't collect the sales tax, and they don't collect the retail sales here. And not to mention, if you may recall the presentation I had the last time, there was newspaper articles printed inside the newspaper of a area dealership who actually was right outside our corporate limits, and basically they were advertising no city sales tax. That was tough. It was tough for our local dealers. It was tough for a lot of our businesses to see that happening to them.
But they're outside the corporate limits.
I understand. It's just the marketing strategy that was taken at the time.
And business and being in business is competitive. Very competitive.
I understand. I'm more looking at protecting our local businesses, regardless of, I understand the competitive part of it. This is up to council. You know, I'm here, I'm trying to protect our local community, our local citizens, and also our businesses. If council doesn't wish to do this, that's fine with me.
I think you go ahead, Councilmember Henry, please.
No, I just had a quick point, so I don't mind waiting.
No, you go right ahead.
Just as I expressed at the work session, I'm concerned that we're just incrementally making it more expensive for our residents to live here. We discussed before how there are items that you cannot purchase here in Cottonwood, and now we want to make sure that we're protecting our local businesses, but it's at the expense of our local residents, and I just can't support that.
I think, if I may, the reason why this is back on the agenda, I think, is Mr. Rodriguez would like to know yay or nay on this. We've talked about it a lot in the past, and I'm not opposed to a use tax either. What I am having a hard time with is the way that we've, you know, the process through which we've implemented these taxes, and I do think that we're piecemealing these increases, whereas I was hoping that we would take a broader, more holistic look at what taxes we're going to raise and the reasons for that, and where we're going to put those funds. And I think we made good progress with the half-cent sales tax increase. It was certainly a compromise on all of our parts, to implement that sales tax. And I think we took some good steps in showing the public and citizens where that sales tax is going to be spent, how we're going to slice up that pie. And I hope to make better progress on that as we move forward through budget processes in future years. But so again, I'm not opposed to this. I just wish we'd taken a more holistic look at how we're doing this and how it would benefit the community. I don't think we've done that, but I know that Mr. Rodriguez and staff would like to have an answer on this. We have a new council coming on, so I think it may be more appropriate to table this decision tonight and wait for the new council to come on board, so the body that's going to be sitting here for the next 2 years will have an opportunity to weigh in and vote on this matter.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Rudy, could you just clarify for me? And let's just stick with a car or an RV, whatever you want. So somebody who lives within the city limits buys a car in Prescott, they're going to pay the use tax. But somebody who lives in Verde Village or Bridgeport, even though they have a Cottonwood address, because they're not inside the city limits, they would not pay the use tax.
That becomes a real sticky widget for me. I would have to check with the Motor Vehicle Division exactly what they would be doing as far as where their address would be. Obviously, you're talking a P.O. box more so than an actual physical address.
No, a physical.
If they have a physical address in Cottonwood, they have to pay the tax. If their physical address is outside the Cottonwood, then they wouldn't have to.
I don't feel like you answered my question. So they have a physical address within Cottonwood. It says Cottonwood, Arizona 86326, but they live in Verde Village, which is Cottonwood.
I'd have to check with MVD as far as how they deal with that. I would suspect that they have to live in the corporate limits because of that.
I think that's right legally. Whether MVD catches it, but anybody that lived in Verde Village that was assessed the tax is not legally obligated to pay it, because we can't tax people. We can't charge a municipal tax on people who don't live in the municipality.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure I had it cleared, because we're an interesting little community here that people have addresses that say Cottonwood, but they're not really Cottonwood.
Right.
And I don't think that happens too often.
Right. We're surrounded by a larger population that thinks they live in Cottonwood, but
Right.
don't.
But don't.
Right.
And it kind of goes to what Tosca was saying is, it benefits our businesses on the backs of just our residents, our 11,000 residents living within the city limits, and that's where I agree with Ms. Henry that I have a hard time swallowing this one.
Okay. Please.
If I can do a little history lesson here. Over the years, the city of Cottonwood has been used by these outside communities. They come in, they use our stores, they use our parking lots to sell their vehicles, to sell their mobile homes, their motor homes. And then they take the person to Camp Verde or wherever the dealership is, and they buy it there so they don't have to pay the tax. They're using the city of Cottonwood to their benefit, and the city of Cottonwood is missing out on that. And I don't think that's right. I mean, I continue to think that damages our business owners. Me personally, if I buy a car, it's going to be in Cottonwood, I'm going to pay the tax anyway because I'm a local resident. I'll probably invest here. I think a lot of our residents might, some might not. I can't say that. But what I can see very much Rudy's perspective, because I've sat through the frustration of our business owners watching these people come in and use a parking lot for a day, make sales hand over fist. They go to Camp Verde and register them, and the city of Cottonwood gets nothing. So that's my frustration on it.
So you mean a dealer would come in and sell, or a private individual?
A dealer that's outside the city of Cottonwood would come and use our driveway or say it's Fry's parking lot, have a little shindig, sell a vehicle, but go actually do the paperwork in Camp Verde. So it's not sold in Cottonwood, it's sold in Camp Verde. It's very sneaky.
We've had that happen in the Safeway parking lot and the.
Many, many
Dive parking
times
lot.
it's happened to Cottonwood.
And Food City.
Would we get the tax from that anyway if if it was
Nothing.
sold in Camp Verde?
We got
though?
zero.
No, we don't. Here's that, you're absolutely right what you said. A few years ago, we tried to stop that by passing another policy that said if you're gonna come into town, your new business registration fee will be, I think it was like 10% of your most expensive vehicle. So they had to give us a listing of it. That only happened one time. That dealership is the same one that moved right outside our corporate limits because they realized I'm not paying $2 to $3 grand for a business registration. When I can go right outside the limits and not pay a thing. And you're absolutely right. Wherever they signed a contract is where they have to pay the tax. So they can sell them all here, drive them down to anywhere else, and just sign off. The reason that they take them back to Camp Verde at the time is because they were getting a rebate back based on an agreement that they had several years ago. Currently, their sales tax is 1% at the dealerships if it's over $5,000. Potentially, they could go back and sign over there. Doing it over here at the outside the corporate limits, they can sign there. They don't collect any tax. However, if they go and re-register it in Camp Verde, the Camp Verde would collect their tax. If they go to Sedona, Sedona would collect their tax. If they come to Cottonwood, we don't get anything.
But just so I'm clear, though, a use tax would not necessarily stop that practice if the paperwork is signed in a different jurisdiction.
No, but let's just take, for example, if it's back to Camp Verde, they could go ahead and sign over there and collect only 1%.
Okay.
But then they come in here, if they title it here, we collect the other 2.5%.
The action, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. The action words for a use tax are used and stored. And it's driven by residency.
Thank you.
Okay. So council, how would you like to proceed on this?
I like your idea of tabling it. I mean, you're going to have two council members voting on a notice that won't be voting when it comes. And I would like to know how the council, I can't think of the term.
Councilmember-elect?
Councilmember-elect, I couldn't get it, feel. And so I was surprised to see it, and I like your idea of tabling it till next time.
May I interject something? As this is a notice of intent, there still would have to be 2 public hearings, at which point the new council will be able to interject, and they can kill it at any point in time after that. The whole idea is we're trying to get this process going. If you basically want to table it, that just delays the process a little bit longer. But the notice of intent means we're looking at it, the 2 hearings, which are both noted on December the 4th and the 18th, at which point we get a chance to talk, have the public, voice their opinion, and then the new council will be seated by then. At any point in time, at any of those 2 meetings, they can go ahead and kill this thing.
But if the new council doesn't even want to get the ball in motion, then why stir up a frenzy over $70,000 worth of revenue, potential revenue, or $75,000 with those 2 public hearings, $75,000. It's up to this council. We can make a motion now and just see where it lands, and to move forward on the notice of intent, or we can table it.
I'll make the motion to table this issue until the new council members are seated.
Second.
Okay, Councilmember Hodeggy made the motion, and Councilmember Althouse seconded it. If we could please have a roll call vote.
Councilmember Althouse?
Yes.
Councilmember Henry?
Yes.
Councilmember Hauge?
Yes.
Councilmember Norman?
No.
Councilmember Pfeiffer?
No.
Vice Mayor Allen?
No.
And Mayor Linsky?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Council.
Thank you. Okay, item 3 is change order requests for completion of a new section of water line along Mingus Avenue between Willard and Main Streets.
Okay, good evening, Mayor, Council. Robert Winnicke, City Engineer. I have Roger Biggs with me, who's our Utilities Director, and then Steve Horton's also been involved with this one a little bit. I'm going to take you down a little history route map, I suppose. Let's go back about 15, 16 months now. Mingus Avenue was not reconstructed at that point in time. We were putting a new water line in advance of the roadway construction. Fast forward 4 months, get to October of last year, road construction started, and the water line still wasn't completed. In order to prevent delaying the the roadway project, we put the water line project on hold. So that way we can get our road reconstructed up to 8th Street and down 6th Street. Then we need to go ahead and make up and finish up the rest of the work that goes from 8th Street to Main Street, and then some tie-in work at Willard, as well as some tie-in work on either side of the road of Mingus to go ahead and do businesses, service tie-overs, all that good stuff. The contractor has been less than easy to work with at times. As you'll see in the change order request that you have on here, we've gone through and identified all the work that remains to still be done on the project and gone back and forth on trying to come up with a negotiated price that seems reasonable to go ahead and do the work. We've taken and stripped out some of the work that our crews can self-perform to help minimize some of these expenses, as well as to try and just expedite things a little bit. As you're aware, we have the reconstruction of the other half of Mingus Avenue coming up after the first of the year. So we're at a point where we need to be able to move forward, get this water line tied in and in service so we can kill the old line. Right now, the line is constructed within about 50 feet of the roundabout at Willard in Mingus and about 100 feet from the intersection at Mingus and Main. And then we've got the tie-overs to do along the corridor. What we're seeking here is approval of a change order to go ahead and get this line, the construction of this line, finished up. This doesn't complete the whole roadway path that we're on for this project. It's been a long road. As it's alluded to in my report to you guys, we have a long ways to go. There's, again, disputes as to delays, what wasn't done on time, and so on and so forth. So we probably have a legal battle coming up down the road that Steve will wonderfully be happy to deal with for us. So what I have is we're coming to you to seek 110,000, roughly round numbers, to go ahead and finish up the construction of this work. Roger has indicated that one of the change orders that we have identified in here, which is the work to do the tie-over at the Cottonwood Community School, just changed name, sorry, which is roughly $23,490 identified, that the work that's proposed there, we can go ahead and do to go ahead and make that tie-over. He feels that his crews are capable of doing that work, and it'd be a way to help save some costs. What I would request is to keep that money available, because we're going to be going through the intersection of Main Street, and knowing that it's an old DDOT roadway. I think when we did our first saw cut in it, we found it was 8 or 9 inches thick of asphalt. So there's a lot of unknowns that we may encounter there. So I'd like to try and keep the change order at it's $109,831.43. I'd like to stick with that authorization so that if other unforeseens come up, that we have the latitude to have our city manager sign appropriate change orders to get this wrapped up. No, not a fun one.
It would be nice to wrap it up.
Yes, it would. And that's what we're trying to do here. I will definitely entertain questions. One thing that Roger and I talked about is, funding for this. Where would funding come from? The original project was funded through a loan from WIFA. We've expended the majority of that funding. In the utilities budget, we already have, through 4 different line items, he's got about $750,000 available for fire hydrant replacements, water valve upgrades, new line expansions, as well as replacements of existing lines. So he feels that this could be absorbed by those and still not impact his other services he's planning to do this year. Roger, you can jump in if you need to. Okay.
So why is Kincaid requesting the change orders?
There is a bit of change work from the condition at the intersection at Main Street itself. Originally, the line was going to come, if you know where that steel plate is in front of Circle K, it was going to go straight across the intersection and tie into the existing water line. There is an unknown sewer line that wasn't accounted for on the plans. So that sewer line happens to be directly in conflict with the water, so we can't go up over and tie back in. And I think it's 4 to 6 feet away, so we don't have enough room to do that. So we had to reroute the water line at that intersection. So that jogs it to the north across the storm drain, and then it's, I think, an 8-foot deep tie-in at the intersection itself with a tapping sleeve and valve. So there's some new work there from what was originally planned.
So when you say there were unknown conditions, who is responsible for identifying the conditions?
That would have come up through design or potholing information. That information was not completed at that point in time.
Who is responsible for the potholing and all that?
A lot of times the contractor does the potholing first. The city during design can go ahead and take on a contract with a potholing company and go ahead and do that. This was not elected during design to do that. Then looking over at the roundabout, we have a set of as-built plans that doesn't accurately show what the conditions are in the field. That information was used to go ahead and put the design plans together by the outside consultant. That information has been tried to be verified by Rogers Crews. They've gone out and tried to dig it up since then so we can find where that true connection is. They still haven't identified exactly where that connection is. So there's some additional work included in that change order as well. So that's part of it, or not part of it. That's really the issues that we're encountering here.
So I guess my question would be as we move forward on other large, road projects that we'll be undertaking, for example, the rest of Mingus Avenue.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
How do we prevent something like this from occurring where unknown conditions exist?
Mm-hmm.
How do we identify the responsibility? Who's responsible for?
I think one thing we need to do is during design, we need to be a little more diligent when it comes time to identify crossings that we're going to have with new facilities and old, that we actually go through and we pothole those, actually physically identify where those are at beforehand.
When you say we, you mean the city of Cottonwood?
City or through our design consultants. We can easily include on an allowance item on the design for them to go ahead and do that. So that's one of the easiest ways to go ahead and do that, because we can identify up front, this exists here, we can try to do that.
Is there a greater cost benefit to spending a little money on the front side?
I would say definitely there is. It's nice to have an idea what's going on before you get there. Anytime you're working underground, it's hard to tell. My X-ray vision is pretty crappy. I'm sorry. It's kind of true, but you can kind of get an idea looking at the surface where things are, but, looking at it on the surface doesn't mean that you know where things are depth-wise. It could be, going from this side of the road to the other side of the road. It looks like it should be 3 foot. That's what's supposed to be designed at. But, you start digging, you find it a foot, 10 feet in the middle of the road, and you go out 4 more feet beyond the edge of pavement, it's 5 feet down. So unfortunately, those are some issues that we have to deal with.
Okay.
Do we really have an option here?
We do have an option. We could always pull the contractor's performance bonds. However, that is more of on the litigation side that we'll have another long battle. That's an option.
How did they fail to perform?
Steve, you want to jump in?
I'll answer that question about the performance bond. So the bonds that are placed under state law are to secure the performance of the scope. Doing that would get the project completed, but it wouldn't resolve the dispute over what the scope is or isn't. If we're going to start talking about the scope and the city's position and more detailed analysis of that, I'd recommend that we go into executive session.
Litigation.
But I guess my question is, it seems like the change orders that they're requesting are beyond the scope of the work that they were asked to do, correct?
No.
I think it's critical scope to be done to make this line work in the first place. This is something that we need to have done. We would have encountered, had the project moved forward just fine, we would have encountered these no matter what. These are conditions that existed either way. So, I don't know if I answered your question very well there. Probably not.
So if we move forward with the same
Yes.
Contractor,
Sure.
we're not waiving our ability to resolve the dispute and possibly get some of these funds?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. On this, if we award the change orders, we're agreeing that the completion work is worth this amount of money.
Are there any alternative companies that can do the work in a more cost-effective manner?
We've reached out to the JOCs in the past that we have on Mr. Job Order contractors that we have, where we've submitted the plans as to what remained to be done. And we got 2 bids back, and the bids were, I think one was $139,000 to do the scope of work that's identified here. And I don't recall the other one off the top of my head. I'd have to go back and look it up.
What was that,
139,000. So that's about 30,000 more than this is.
It just really doesn't sit well saying, basically, we think that you, Kincaid, are either partially or wholly at fault, but yet we'll pay you over $100,000 to do some additional work.
Understood.
And I'm sorry, I just want to note for the count, this sets aside the delay claims for which we have notice of claim for over $50,000.
By Kincaid?
Yes. And we were just served with it. This is tangentially related, but we're now in litigation in a personal injury lawsuit where we're a co-defendant with Kincaid over an accident that occurred in an uncompleted section of sidewalk that was part of this project.
Personally, I am not comfortable making a decision tonight without an executive session. I don't think that we have too many items on the agenda, so I wouldn't recommend that we have it, but it sounds as though there are too many moving parts, and I did not fully appreciate the magnitude of this decision until we just learned this information during the meeting. That's my personal opinion. So.
Well, we're certainly free to head into executive session to discuss more of the details on this.
My preference would be that we table it until we have, additional time, given the remaining items on the agenda. Because when you really sit down and look at the math, well, it's 50,000 that they would, I guess, waive, but we don't have that in writing. I mean, would they rescind, they would revoke their notice of claim?
I'm sorry, to the contrary, they have specifically said that they'll do this work for this amount of money, and they're not waiving those claims. Those claims are still pending, and matter of fact, we're looking at what's called a tolling agreement, because their time to sue on those claims is about to run, and they're willing to keep talking about it, but they're not willing to waive the right to sue.
Then that other contractor that you mentioned, did that $139,000 amount include because I believe this $109,000 is minus the approximately $28,000 that we're doing in-house, is that correct?
Yes, correct. That other work did have that piece that I mentioned that we take out and self-perform.
Okay.
That was originally included as part of that scope of work too.
So the other contractor would possibly also lower their amount?
There'd be a chance that we could reduce that amount as well, yes.
I don't know. I'd really look to our city attorney for some guidance here on what to do. I don't feel comfortable with the time crunch in the agenda we have tonight, though, asking for an executive session tonight on the topic. But that's, again, just my personal opinion.
Is there an issue if we wait till the next council meeting?
I think it's only the work won't get completed until sometime after that. I mean, we're just pushing it forward.
But as far as the legal timeline and how we proceed with all the other matters that are pending, there's no issue with waiting until December?
No.
Or next week?
Week after now.
You guys canceled that meeting. I voted against it, but that meeting was canceled. And I voted against it in case something like this came up.
You had a premonition, didn't you?
You can go back to the tape. I said if something came up, I didn't like having to wait till December, but that meeting's canceled.
I don't know why we couldn't have a special meeting at the work session.
We could do that, where we go into executive session to discuss this. I think that's more appropriate. That way we can get through the rest of our agenda tonight without putting the audience to sleep.
I would agree with that.
Okay. Rest of council?
Thank you.
Okay.
We need a motion to table it? Do we need?
Yes. Did you make a motion?
No, I thought.
Make a motion.
I make a motion to table this item until next week.
Second.
Okay, Councilmember Henry made the motion, Vice Mayor seconded it. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Althouse.
Yes.
Councilmember Henry.
Yes.
Councilmember Hargy.
Yes.
Councilmember Norman.
Yes.
Councilmember Pfeiffer.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Allen.
Yes.
Mayor Linsky.
Yes.
And
Thank
motion
you.
passed.
See all the things we're taking off your plate. All right. Next up,
Thank you.
change orders for AZ Western Contracting, Inc. for additional expenses incurred on the Silver Springs Wash Bank Rehabilitation Project.
Okay, I'm going to stand here. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council. Robert Winnicky, still City Engineer. Haven't changed. Now, what I have for you tonight is consideration of a change order. Actually, there's 2 change orders on the work agenda. We had a third one that came through as everything was getting finalized. The third one totaled $813.13. Let me explain what came up here. And we're all aware with the Pizza Hut wall, we found out that we had accepted a drainage easement that we accepted ownership of, as well as maintaining the property to the side of us so they're not impacted by what happens with our wash. Well, we started work during monsoon season. Things were going good. Everything was going around the area. We went ahead and excavated about 90 foot long, 6 foot deep, 8 foot wide of an excavation. So we had a big hole open to go ahead and do the foundations, get down below the scour depth of the wash. August 21st, we had a pretty substantial rain that came in and actually happened to sit right on the drainage area for this wash. Well, the wash flowed and flowed pretty substantially. During the rain event, there was a 18-inch storm drain pipe that comes from the north side of Pizza Hut's property that was not shown on the as-bills. So we didn't have any knowledge of that information going in, and it had been buried by material and tree overgrowth and everything else. So we had no clue that it was even there. That contributed to the water coming in and a lot of sediment coming down. That rain event filled that entire excavation. So basically set us back 2 weeks worth of time to go ahead and get that done. We had some subsequent rains that happened over there that same period. I think it was a couple weeks later, actually right before Labor Day. We had a large rain event on a Sunday that hit that wash area again. After that event, I didn't have the pictures. I can send these to you. But the wash looks like we had never gotten in there and done anything to it. It looked like there were, decent sized cobbles and everything just straight about the ground like a wash would normally look. It was pretty impressive. So we talked with the contractor about how do we proceed? Where do we got to get this done? We realized that more large rainfall events like this could damage that embankment where Pizza Hut's parking lot was. And if we lose the parking lot, we're probably going to lose the trash enclosure. We had some lights for their parking lot. All that, if we lose that, now our costs are going to really kind of skyrocket on us. So we worked out the opportunity to go ahead and re-excavate the opening, or the foundation footing area, and did that on a T&M basis. That came up to, I think it was roughly $12,000. And then with that, the storm drain pipe, which is on change order number 2, that's the one that causes some grief, helped fill up the area. That one was needing to be extended so it got beyond the face of the wall. It wasn't a good idea to leave a pipe that carries water, put it right behind our new wall, and watch it get undermined again and go ahead and collapse on us. We didn't want to do that. So to protect our wall, we asked the contractor to extend that pipe. That was roughly $1,300, and they went ahead and did all the backfill, got the wall constructed. At the time I submitted all this, we were about 90% done with the backfill. We had one area where the parking lot had been undermined about 2 feet, and to get back in there and to construct a compacted fill with mechanical equipment isn't very easy. So we asked the contractor to go ahead and look at doing concrete slurry material, which is something that you can place. It fills the voids, and you don't have to compact it. That cost came out to be $813.13 to do that. So what I'm asking is that you approve an overall contract price of $107,087.46. That includes change orders 1, 2, and 3. The project will be done within the next 2 weeks. We're just waiting for the handrail to be installed on top.
Any discussion from council on this?
Question. The actual change, the contract is the $12,635.71. That's the actual, what we're voting on tonight, correct?
If I could include the extra $813 on there for change order number 3.
$13.
Yes.
$813.
The original, I think the amount that we had from change order 2 is $106,274.33. This would add $813 and some change to that. So the total amount for the contract would be $107,087.46.
So
It's not on our paperwork. I'm a little confused.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
And what I would like is not the total contract amount. I want the total of the change orders
Okay.
that we're approving tonight.
Okay. Let's see. Give me a second.
We gotta watch him do math.
let's all throw out a bunch of numbers to confuse
Take our
them.
shoes off.
These are fine.
Robert, I
Yes,
have
sir.
a calculator.
That's all right. I get it. That's fine. Thanks, guys. $13,448.84.
$3,348.84.
Actually, 13,448.
13,448.
Yep, and 84 cents.
Okay.
So why is it our responsibility that the wash they were excavating filled up with silt? How are we responsible for that?
We have the unknown pipe that contributed to the water that was coming into that area. That pipe, they had protected the work area to keep the wash on the south side of their embankment. They had basically taken the material, excavated it out of the hole, fortified the wash through there, just to the, I guess it's the south towards the car wash. So the main channel was diverted to go around. However, with the additional water that came in from the Pizza Hut parking lot and through any area that was behind that berm that they had created, that rainfall came through that pipe, concentrated the flow, and actually washed out and brought more material in. That weakened the stability of that bank that they put in, or the berm, on the backside, and then given the flow on the other side, it just caused a massive collapse of the entire berm. So unfortunately, it was, you're sitting on one side nice and dry, looking good. All of a sudden, you get water coming behind you, trying to figure out where this is coming from. You turn around and you see that you got great flow coming in here on a pipe that you had no clue existed. And now it's filling up against your nice fortified bank. And that's eroding the backside while the front side is being eroded by the wash. And at some point, it just gives out.
So all the damage was caused by that 18-inch pipe alone?
No, the 18-inch pipe contributed to the failure of the berm that was in place.
And then all the rain.
Yes.
Yeah,
just exacerbates
it. Just, yeah.
And so whose decision was it to start the work during monsoon season?
The goal was, if things were looking good and the contractor believed that, we're going to be able to hopefully make it through there. Once they got the footing in place, we would have been okay. If the footing would have been placed before that first rainfall event, we wouldn't have any issues at that point. We might have lost the bank. But because they had started the excavation and we had that large rainfall come through, it started undermining the bank that held up the parking lot as well as the trash enclosure.
Mm-hmm.
So we couldn't stop and wait till this time of year at this point to do that. It was kind of imperative to move forward and get that done.
It just seems like it's risky business to do work like that
Mhm.
in a wash
Sure.
during a monsoon season.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure why we're bearing the full responsibility of that risk.
Understood. Unfortunately, this was done as a kind of emergency measure to make sure we didn't lose the parking lot as well as trash enclosure, so.
But I understand, but it wasn't like all of a sudden this parking lot was at risk. I mean, it took years and years and years for that thing to get undermined the way it
Well,
was.
The big issue last monsoon season, 2017, is what really exacerbated things. We had some good flows in the drainage area, and that's October of 17 is when the landowner brought this to our attention that this was an issue. So we had to go through design, and we had to make sure that it was designed to withstand scour of the wash.
Mm-hmm.
And we can see that the wash does carry some substantial flow and good scour potential.
All right.
Make a motion, unless there's more discussion.
Is there any
Make a
more
motion.
No,
discussion?
I was going to say the same thing. Go ahead. No, go, you have it written down.
I move to approve change orders number 1 and 2 to the contract of Arizona Western Contracting in the total amount of $13,448.84 to cover additional expenses incurred on the project.
Could I make one correction to that? It's change orders 1 through 3 instead of 1 and 2.
1 through, amend my motion to include change orders 1 through 3 with the amount of $13,448.84 to cover additional expenses incurred on the project.
Okay, thank you.
Second.
Okay. You're confused because the third change order is not in our packet.
Yes.
That's what's
Correct.
confusing
That's
you.
easy
But the
to
total I
confuse
gave
me.
you does include that third change order.
So we had Vice Mayor make the motion, Councilmember Althouse second. If we could please have roll call vote.
Councilmember Althouse,
Yes.
Councilmember Henry,
Yes.
Councilmember Haurgy,
Yes.
Councilmember Norman,
Yes.
Councilmember Pfeiffer,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Allen,
Yes.
Mayor Linsky,
No. Thank you.
and motion passed.
All right. Up
Thank you.
next, thank you. Consideration and possible legal action to hire a new city building official above the midpoint of the salary range for the position. Evening.
Mr. Mayor, council members, we interviewed for the building official. The position was open since 2014, and Mr. Hodges was qualified for this position. And the range was 51,171 to 75,408 maximum. And he was offered 59 in the midpoint, but he came back with 62, which he originally asked for 65 in order to move to Arizona, to Cottonwood. So staff is asking council's approval to pass the midpoint.
Questions from council?
How many, I'm looking at it, but how many years of experience you might?
He has more than 30 years, 35 years,
Okay.
and he owned his own business, and he's very well qualified for the position.
That's it.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything else?
No questions.
And just to let the council know, this is probably not a very competitive pay range for the Verde Valley. Other jurisdictions are paying much more. We're very fortunate to get this guy for even 62,000. So.
He does realize it's cheaper to live here than California, though. Especially Squaw Valley, California, but
All right. Do I hear a motion?
I'll do it. I move to approve offering Paul Hodges a starting salary of $62,000 to serve as the city's new building official.
Second.
Okay, Councilmember Althouse made the motion and Councilmember Norman seconded it. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Althouse.
Yes.
Councilmember Henry.
Yes.
Councilmember Haurgy,
Yes.
Councilmember Norman,
Yes.
Councilmember Pfeiffer,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Allen,
Yes.
and Mayor Linsky.
Yes, thank you.
Motion passed.
All of us saying yes.
Thank you. Okay, up next, item 6, ordinance number 653, amending the city's zoning ordinance by amending section 418C-1 zone light commercial by amending section B permitted uses and C conditional uses. First reading.
This was before you in July in work session, and we went through the details. As you know, in C1 zone, in order to have music, you have to go through the conditional use permit. And with the new businesses, we had some problems that at the beginning they were not thinking about having the music, but later on it was coming, and then business was running, and they were forgetting to come and get this conditional use permit. So, and it does make sense after seeing several examples like this. So we look into having the music, live music in C1 zone. But after studying in details, having it as a blanket statement did not make sense. And meantime, Arts, Culture, and Entertainment Center boundaries, not center, boundaries was passed, it made sense to bring this item under that boundary again, which is from Bridge to all the way to the 89A Walgreens area. So all the C1 zone businesses can have music straight right out, but in other areas would be coming like before with the conditional use permit.
Okay. Any discussion on this item?
I think we discussed it before.
Yeah, makes
Yeah.
good sense.
Pretty much.
Okay. Just a first reading tonight. Are there any members of the public here tonight that would like to comment on this item? Okay. Would like to note, too, that the Planning and Zoning Commission voted unanimously to approve this, which is a big step forward from the last time we brought this.
I was going to say, Mr. Mayor, I think this was what's the word I'm looking for?
Compromise?
The compromise between P&Z and the council. P&Z felt uncomfortable about just a blanket C1 zone right to outdoor music, and so this was probably a good compromise.
Right, okay. Okay, well, again, it's just first reading, so we'll bring it back again for action. Okay, thank you. Could have the deputy clerk read resolution number 650, or excuse me, ordinance number 653 by title only.
Ordinance number 653, an ordinance of the mayor and city council of the city of Cottonwood, Yavapai County, Arizona, amending the city's zoning ordinance by amending section 418 C1 zone, light commercial, by amending section B, permitted use, and C, conditional uses. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, item 7 is appointment of members, appointment of Uniform Code Appeals Board members and alternates.
Yes. As you know, we just recently adopted 2012 ICC code, and this code is made out of Uniform Building Code, Fire Code, Plumbing, Electrical, and Mechanical Code. And also, individuals who are using this code had the right to appeal or the decision in that code. So for this, we need to have an appeal board made out of 5 members, 2 alternatives. In addition to 5, we have 2 alternatives. Mm-hmm. And because it's made out of different codes, and the members should be with the different backgrounds. And Bill Jackson, Craig Backus, Chris Spanigal, Krishan Inicki, Rennie Radosha are the proposed members, and alternates are Jacob Mickle, Christian Wernaski. So 3 builders with plumbing, including the plumbing expertise, and 1 engineer and architect is on the panel or on the board, and 2 alternates are engineer and architect.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Well, I appreciate those who reached out to them. I appreciate them especially for volunteering their time. So, looks like a good board.
I make comment. Very well qualified individuals. You did a great job. The only person I'm not personally familiar with is Chris Spanagle. I'm sure he's great with C&B Construction. So it's a great job to get that. Sometimes it's hard to get all those cats herded, so great job.
Actually, I would like to say it here that this helped with meeting with the builders. We had those meetings 2-3 years ago. It started, so this was building up in those meetings, and they were aware of this is coming, or they knew that this is needed. So it was just one phone call. They said yes.
Great.
Fantastic. All right, then do I hear a motion?
I move to appoint the following individuals to serve as members or alternates as applicable on the appeals board provided for under each of the uniform codes published by the International Code Council as adopted or may be hereafter adopted by the city of Cottonwood. Members: Bill Jackson, Craig Backus, Chris Spanigal, Krishan Ginigi, Rennie Radosha. Alternates: Jacob Mickle and Christian Bernoski.
Second.
Okay, Councilmember Henry made the motion, Vice Mayor seconded it. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Althouse.
Yes.
Councilmember Henry.
Yes.
Councilmember Haurgi.
Yes.
Councilmember Norman.
Yes.
Councilmember Pfeiffer.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Allen.
Yes.
Mayor Linsky.
Yes.
And motion
Thank you.
passed.
All right. Up next on the agenda, item 8 is review, discussion, and possible approval of an updated bicycle plan. Evening.
Evening. Mr. Mayor, Council, I am pretty ecstatic to present this. This was a monumental task that was accomplished by a very small group that didn't cost the city anything. And that's challenging to do these days. It was accomplished by the Bicycle Advisory Committee, to which two of the members, Nancy Gottschalk and Dr. Bob, were here. But one individual that is kind of our unsung hero in this process is Dylan Johnstone, and hopefully he's watching tonight from Texas, Houston. If it wasn't for him, this would not have occurred. His experience with Portland State, his master's degree in urban and transportation design, as well as his time with the Transportation Research and Education Center and the Bicycle Transportation Alliance in Portland, helped get this document done. The last time it was presented to you was in 2009. When we applied for the silver status with the league, they had requested or suggested that we review and update this document for a couple of reasons. One, trends have changed, things have changed. We've also accomplished a lot of the things in the 2009 document. And this outlines the plan and going forward. It also aligns with the recent update to the general plan for the city as a whole. It's a living document, it's a vision document, and really the layout is up front. It kind of lines the scope, the goals, increase the percentage of all trips made by bicyclists in the city of Cottonwood, establish and maintain an integrated system of bikeways that enables low-stress, safe, and convenient bicycling. The network should link neighborhoods and commercial areas throughout the city. And then it's outlined by the 5 E's, which is in accordance with the League of Cities bicycle program. I'd like to open it up now to Nancy or Dr. Bob if they would like to say. The Parks Commission did approve this, so this would mean the council is 2 for 2 tonight. Any questions?
Any questions from council?
No, but thank you to the volunteers and staff for all of your work on this. I think it looks good.
I appreciate too that you included the old bicycle plan. It's really nice to juxtapose the two and see how much more refined the new plan is. And you know, Mr. Johnstone really did. I know that he worked really hard on this and certainly appreciate it. It's a shame he's not still here.
Yes.
You know, a lot of the items in there look great as far as, you know, signage on the streets and wayfinding signs. And I hope that we'll work hard as a council to implement some of these changes. And I think our neighborhoods would really benefit from those changes too.
Definitely.
It's exciting. This is a long work, a lot of work, I know.
Totally.
Yep.
And have it done by volunteers. Incredible.
It is. I move to approve the updated city bicycle plan. Are we ready for motion?
Mm-hmm. I'll second that. So Councilmember Henry made the motion, Mayor seconded it. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Althouse?
Yes.
Councilmember Henry?
Yes.
Councilmember Haurgi?
Yes.
Councilmember Norman?
Yes.
Councilmember Piper?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Allen?
Yes.
And Mayor Linsky?
Yes.
Motion
Thank
passed.
you. All right. And again, please extend our appreciation to the rest of the Bicycle Advisory Committee. Okay, next is item 9. We're closing in on the end here, folks. Participant grant agreement with the Arizona State Parks Board State Historic Preservation Office, SHPO, for continuation expansion of the Cottonwood Historic Resource Survey and Inventory Project. Mr. Paget, how are you?
Good evening. Thank you. Fine. Mayor Linsky, members of the council. If you recall, a couple months back, I was here and we were requesting permission from you to apply for a grant through SHPO to proceed with phase 2 of the Historic Preservation District, the Downtown Commercial District Survey. Phase 1 has been done. This that we're applying for is phase 2. Based on your direction, we did apply for that grant. We've been accepted by SHPO to receive that money. So now the next step in the process is to come and have you formally accept that the council is moving forward and wants to accept that grant money. What that means is the $12,000 grant from SHPO gets an $8,000 matching grant from the city. So the total would be $20,000 to move forward with more further results in the survey of the historic downtown district. So with that, any questions from anyone?
Any questions from council?
I just wanted to make sure we do have that 8,000 fund. It doesn't say where where the matching funds are coming from, but we do have those.
Yes, that was budgeted into this year's.
It was in this budget?
Yes,
Perfect.
it was
Thank
budgeted.
you.
Excellent.
I'll just express on behalf of the commission on which I serve, the Historic Preservation Commission, we're very excited to be able to continue the second part of the survey, the Historic Resources Survey, and it's certainly generating a lot of good conversation on the commission on what we do with this information once we get it.
If you could, just for the public, explain what the Historic Resources Survey is, so that they understand how wonderful it is to get this grant.
It's been a while since something has been done. In 1986 and also 1999, there were surveys done. So now, nearly 20 years later, we're coming and updating basically our inventory of what exists and what we have now. Where are we starting from this point and moving forward? A lot of it has just been drive-by surveys of the neighborhood. And like I said, it's just sort of, what do we have to start with right now? What's coming up with terms? You know, what is the style of architecture that we have out there, which is many different definitions.
Old Cottonwood. That's
right.
That's unique about Cottonwood is it
Yes.
was a free town, so there's certainly many different vernacular, but also, you know, high-class architectural styles that exist here. And it's neat to document all that.
Right. So we have received a draft of the Phase 1 survey that was a similar grant received last year that's sort of being distributed, not sort of being distributed, it is being distributed among staff and the Historic Preservation Commission for comments, clarification, accuracy. So we should have that Phase 1 that was last year's grant to show you some results from that, hopefully in a couple months.
The benefit too is if funding this grant is that if we can educate more folks in our communities that their homes are historic and worthy of preservation, then they can hopefully landmark it through our local landmark process that you all agreed to some time back, and which is administered by the Historic Preservation Commission. And by doing that, they can then apply for our small grant program through what's funded by the Historic Home and Building Tour. So we have a lot of money available right now to homeowners out there who have historic properties that would like to fix them up, put a new roof on them or change out the windows or however that looks. There's money available right now to do that, and this survey will help identify those properties that are eligible. So it's a win-win-win.
Thank you, Mayor Lindsay.
Yeah.
Can I make a motion?
Please.
I move to approve the participant agreement with the State Historic Preservation Office, SHPO, for the 2018 Certified Local Government, CLG, Historic Preservation Pass-Through Grant.
Second.
Okay, Vice Mayor made the motion, Councilmember Aldhouse seconded it, and roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Althouse.
Yes.
Councilmember Henry.
Yes.
Councilmember Hauge.
Yes.
Councilmember Norman.
Yes.
Councilmember Pfeiffer.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ellen.
Yes.
And Mayor Linsky.
Yes, thank you.
Motion passed.
Okay, last on the agenda tonight is discussion and possible legal action to reclassify the presiding magistrate's position. So certainly something that's been on the council's, part of council discussion for some time, and it falls in line with some of our stated benefits, or some of our stated goals of providing more efficiencies in the services that we provide to the community. And I know we're all aware that we have tasked the city attorney with looking into our case filings and some of the efficiencies that we can build around the amount of cases that we have each annually. And through his research has come to the conclusion that as we look at moving forward with a new contract with a new magistrate to provide our magistrate, court services here in Cottonwood, it seems that a 3-day-per-week position would be enough to fill the duties of that magistrate. And so we're here tonight to discuss this further and see what action council would like to take. And I would ask Steve to fill in the blanks.
No, I think you captured it. The range, I think, when you do the math, I think anything between 3 and 4 days a week, at least numerically, the judge may want to speak to his particular caseload. But when you look at the comparator jurisdictions, it seems like those with caseloads around ours currently and reasonably projected out into the future would support something between 3 and 4 days a week.
Okay. We did discuss offering benefits with this position as well, health benefits, to make it more attractive for folks to apply. And we did set the range, which I think is a reasonable range, comparable to the range you would find in the valley.
And with respect to the benefits, that would be made available if the person the council decided to, offer the position to, wanted them. So it just widens your pool.
Okay.
And then, it's...
Okay. And potential benefits, again, would be, a potential savings of $30,000 to $50,000 a year without compromising any of the services that our community has come to rely on. Is there any discussion from council? No. Okay, I know we have Judge Lasota and another gentleman in the audience tonight who have both filled out forms to speak to the council, and I would ask Judge Lasota to come up.
Can I yield to Mr. Gordon first?
Certainly. Mr. Gordon, if you wouldn't mind coming up to council, comments regarding items listed on the agenda, which is what you're here to speak on tonight, are limited to a 5-minute time period.
Sure,
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mayor, council members, I appreciate the opportunity to be with you this evening. And just to introduce myself, my name is Mike Gordon. I'm an attorney here in town. My brother, David, is my law partner. We have an office here in Cottonwood that we've had since 2005, so we've been here in Cottonwood for about 13 years. And I wanted to appear tonight just to express my support and appreciation for Judge Lasota and the staff at the municipal court. I've had the opportunity to know Judge Lasota for several years and know him professionally and socially, and I think very highly of him. And also in my experiences in dealing with the municipal court, I find that it's very well-run and efficient. The staff there and Judge Lasota treat attorneys and the public with respect and professionalism. My brother David appears before Judge Lasota in that court much more frequently than I do due to the nature of his practice. He couldn't be here tonight, but he wanted me to express those same sentiments on his behalf. He's had nothing but good experiences there. And clearly there are a lot of things that are going right in the municipal court, and I think that credit for that in large part goes to Judge Lasota and his staff. I understand the council's responsibility to make sure that public monies are used wisely and cost effectively. What I would respectfully submit is that in connection with this action, I would encourage the council to avoid making a hasty decision on this item. I know it sounds like there has been some inquiry done into this, but I think it would be helpful to talk to some of the attorneys that regularly appear in that court, both for the prosecution and defense attorneys that are there, as well as staff, to get a better understanding of the caseloads that are there and the way that it's being handled. I appreciate your time and attention tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon, for being here.
Thank you.
Judge Lasota.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I have some handouts for everybody to have something I need to go through briefly and a couple things.
Thank you.
The top form shows our court efficiencies as far as how fast we're resolving cases both on civil and criminal. The first page is civil, second page is criminal. So this is our efficiencies with a full-time judge in this position. As it says at the top, it says standard. 80% within 60 days, that's how many cases what percentage of cases get resolved within the first 60 days of filing, and then 98% within 90 days. So 80% is standard, we're at 91% for 0 to 60 days on civil. 98% is standard for within 90 days, we're at 99%. So we're above expectations for courts statewide by a substantial amount, especially in that first 60-day period. And the misdemeanor cases, 75% within 60 days is the standard, and we're at 92% within 60 days. And that's a lot in part due to our early disposition court and the procedures I've put in place. 90% within 90 days, and we're at 94.74%, so almost 5% higher. And then 98% within 180 days, and we're at 100%. So 100% of our cases are getting resolved within that 180-day period. Lowering the number of days a judge is there does not make those figures increase. So the argument that it's for efficiency purposes is not quite accurate. Maybe a cost-effective argument, if that's what you intended to mean, might be a little bit different in that regard. The second page, Mr. Shaw was not able to be here, but he wanted me to relay his comments regarding his concerns. As it indicated, he said he hopes that you're willing to keep the position as close to full-time as possible. I read their list of comparisons with other courts. You can certainly tell them in response to our specialty courts, like the homeless and mental health treatment courts, take up a lot more time than simple filing in one of those other courts that do not have these programs. You can add most of these courts are currently not doing anything like our specialty courts, but that some like Sedona are considering following our lead. In other words, they will likely be adding work to their plate similar to what we have already started, because it's good for the community in the long run and saves money in other areas like law enforcement and jail expenses. It seems like everyone agrees we should be doing these extra things, but then balking when we have to come up with the money to pay for it. That's his comments that he asked me to relay. The next page I have is taking the agenda communication and taking the numbers that were given and coming up with projections and totals, just using simple mathematics. First of all, I'd like to point out these numbers are from that Mr. Horton provided to start with are based on fiscal year 2017. Now, fiscal year 17 had some unusual factors that came into play as to why that year was a lot lower than normal. And I'm sure the mayor's aware that there were several Family Medical Leave Act officers out during that time period, several that had wives as they were having babies and that type of thing. That was also around the time of the Walmart shooting, the officer that had the stroke on the firing range. There was all those officers, there was like 6 or 7 officers out at one stretch of time. So obviously when all those officers are out, filings are down. So that's what happened there. So trying to use those filings as an example of what a true number would be for any given year is not accurate. And that comes to play with the fact that when you look at our numbers for fiscal year 2018, right now we're already at 3,119 cases for fiscal year 2018. And what I did was break it down. For fiscal year 2017, we're at 3,200 plus cases, and that's something that was acknowledged by Mr. Horton on page 2 on the first full paragraph. And then I looked at calendar year 2018 with the fact that we have 3,119 at the end of October, so that's on 3,742. And then for fiscal year 2019, we're on pace for 3,900. Mr. Horton estimated a pace to exceed 3,500, and it still is accurate that we're at 3,900, which is above the pace of 3,500, so it does exceed the 3,500, but it's actually 3,900. So if you look at that first column I have over there, fiscal year 2018, where we have 3,200 plus cases, and you're comparing to Sedona at 2,300 cases, which does 24 hours a week. Well, just the simple math on it is, 3,200 hours, 3,200 filings of ours versus 2,300 for them. And if you look at, and if you compare how many hours that would be compared to their 24, if you do it proportionally, it would say 33.39 hours. If you go over to count what the numbers are actually for calendar year 2018, if you do a proportionate review, it would say that the number of hours for Cottonwood should be 39.06 hours. If you look at the 3,900 pace, which by the way is well over 50% increase in filings, which needs to be taken into account, but the 3,900 pace that we're on pace for compared to their 2,300 would mean 40.70 hours compared to the 24 hours that they have. So it shows a range of 33.39 to 40.70 hours just using simple mathematics. And Camp Verde That judge, by the way, has been asking for full-time because he believes his court should be full-time. This year, he agreed not to pursue the full-time and hold it off until next year because he got the council to concede on giving him an extra full staff member, and he thought it was more important to have that extra staff member, which obviously was still an extra expense. But he still felt that his 2,200 cases, or 1,500 case filings, and whatever they've risen to since then, warrant him being there 5 days a week. But if you do the math, at 3,200 for ours for fiscal year 2018 compared to their 1,500, we're at more than double, and he's got 28 hours for less than half of the cases. So if you did a proportionality review for the 3,200 divided by 15 is the same as 59.73 hours here. Pace for calendar year 2018 at our 3,742 cases that we're on pace for would say that you would do 70 hours in Cottonwood, and the pace for fiscal year 2019, it would say that you should do 72.80 hours here. And obviously, I'm not claiming that we need to do anywhere near those number of hours. Chino Valley, for fiscal year 2018, if you do the proportionality review, it puts you at 27.63, which is at 28. But actually, what's going on in calendar year 2018, it would say 32, which is 4 days a week. And fiscal year 2019, 33.68, which is a little over 4 days a week. So, and Fountain Hills and Florence are listed, but nothing down about number of hours. But it should be noted that our cases are substantially higher than those two, so I don't know what throwing those on there means, because you don't even, and it says that there's a part-time judge, but it doesn't say how many hours he works or that type of thing. There's an indication of Prescott Justice of Peace Court. He does 21 hours for $70,000 a year. And his civil cases, he doesn't do any of the civil hearings. Those civil hearings are done not at the court. They're done over at city council chambers for the city of Prescott, and they're handled by pro tems. If we did such a procedure, it would cost a lot more money to have pro tems have to handle all those extra cases as he does. I'm not arguing it totally against reducing to part-time. If the council believes that part-time, less than 40 hours is appropriate, I don't have any objection to that concept. But I bring these figures out to ask the court to consider whether or not as Mr. Horton indicated, it would justify 3 to 4 days a week. I'm asking you to consider whether or not 4 days might be more appropriate, especially if you do just a simple mathematical analysis compared to those other courts on what those hours would be per hour of judge time per week. There's a statement on the second page of the posting that says, civil cases, they can be handled without any direct judicial involvement. That's not true. There's hearings, there's post-judgment motions, there's motions for extensions of time to payment. There's different things that a judge has to do on those, so there is additional hours spent on that, especially the hearings, and we have a regular number of hearings that happen for all of the city code violations, all the parking tickets, all the speeding and other kind of tickets that we resolve as well. And then it's hard to read through the lines sometimes, but you've made some comments about for a new judge, but I respectfully suggest to you that when we just did my evaluation last year, you had the new performance evaluations that you set forth, had 3 as meeting expectations. Well, if you added all the scores together, mine ended up being 3.4 or 3.5, which means that I'm exceeding expectations. But yet now, because you're wanting to take down the number of hours, we're talking about a new judge, and courts throughout the state are not doing that. That's why they have merit selection throughout the state, and other courts have judicial boards, and usually the only consideration of when you're getting to get rid of a judge is if that judge is having a problem. And this court is not having a problem, as you can see by our performance numbers. Things are going quite well at the court. There's no problems. You don't get any complaints like you did with the previous judge to the mayor, to the city manager, the clerk's office. You're not getting complaints. You're getting attorneys coming before you telling you how good a job I do. So I think the discussion should be limited to what number of hours that you require, as opposed to any consideration of making me have to reapply for my position that I'm doing a perfectly good job at, and there's no reason to change the judge for. So I just ask the council just to consider the numbers that I've presented in deciding whether or not 4 days or 3.5 or something is more appropriate than the 3 days that Mr. Alinsky is suggesting. I know he represents it. Mr. Horton said it was 3 days is what it should be. That's not what he said you denied. He said somewhere between 3 to 4 days, and I suggest to you that 4, or even possibly 3.5, is more appropriate, and the numbers speak for themselves, and our cases are going out. They're up like 80-something% this year, 80-something%. So the cases are going up substantially every year now. And that shouldn't be the time to hack away when the cases are likely to continue on that same pace, and they have been going on that same pace for the past 18 months. Thank you. I have opened any questions if anybody has any questions.
Thank you. Mr. Soto, any questions for the judge tonight?
No, thank you.
Okay. Okay, so we did, reserve and talk about reserving the right to increase the days per week if it's warranted as we move forward with this. But I think based on all the evidence that we've gathered, it does appear to me that a part-time magistrate is what's more appropriate for this position. Okay.
I like the fact that we left it open for us. If we do need four days a week, we can go to 4 days a week. We've done the investigation. We've gone back and forth, taking into account how many clerks we have, taking into account how much work they do.
Okay. And the other thing, too, is I know that this council, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I think this council is very proud of the deferred prosecution programs that Judge Soto has implemented, and we certainly want to continue that. It's important to me, at least. I know it's important to our community. I think it's shown to be very effective. And from all accounts and from everything I've heard, Judge Soto does a great job administering his court. That's not what we're talking about tonight. We're talking about trying to make sure our court is run as efficiently as possible with the amount of resources that we have. And again, we've looked into it, and I think a part-time position is better suited for this.
And I think the reason it talked about April of 2019 is that's when the contract is due for renewal. And we'll go through that process. We wouldn't be changing the current contract. It would be for the new contract, and that's why that's mentioned there.
Right, and we are trying to get ahead of this, and so it's not a surprise to anyone, and so there's plenty of time for us to plan.
Right.
Okay.
As long as we leave the door open for more hours if necessary, I think it's a good point.
Certainly. Okay. Any other discussion? No? Okay. I would then move to reclassify the presiding magistrate's position to a part-time benefit-eligible 3-day-per-week position with the salary range for the position prorated to the current salary range of 32.
Second.
Okay, Mayor made the motion, Councilmember Althouse seconded. If we could please have a roll call vote.
Councilmember Althouse.
Yes.
Councilmember Henry.
Yes.
Councilmember Howergy.
Yes.
Councilmember Norman.
Yes.
Councilmember Pfeiffer.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Allen.
Yes.
And Mayor Linsky.
Yes, thank you.
Motion passed.
Okay, thanks,
Move we pay
Judge Soto and Mr. Gordon for being here this evening.
Move we pay the claims and adjustments.
Second.
Okay, Vice Mayor made the motion, Councilmember Henry seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Move we adjourn?
Second.
Okay, Councilmember Henry made the motion to adjourn. Vice Mayor seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we're adjourned.
Not for me, 'cause I get it back.